Good morning, friends. Welcome to my ad hoc rantings program, internet ranting program or show. Audience, yesterday one of my videos got deleted by YouTube, and I was told that three times, third time, and my channel will be closed, right, or deleted. I don't know why that is, but apparently I said something about the pandemic. Uh, and One word I uttered about the pandemic in my previous video, and that caused the video to be deleted. I would say this is a violation of freedom of speech, but nonetheless, if you want to talk to those people or, you know, do whatever you want to do, it's a long road, so it's not worth the effort, let's put it this way. But nonetheless, this is the video that's called EU and USA are helping Pustalenin, and they're hampering the defense of Ukraine. That includes NATO, of course. They're buying time for Pustalenin to recover and reformulate the attack on Ukraine, right? And Europe, for that matter. This wave of invasion that is directed at Europe has faltered in Ukraine, or largely faltered. I mean, the entire edifice of Zion is shaken and it's now falling apart and so on based on that. Not everywhere, not on that. And those people, EU and establishments in Europe, are giving lip service to Ukraine, basically. There's a note worth mentioning this morning that I read a report that says Iran and Hezbollah are in fact withdrawing their forces from Yemen. How true is that? I don't know, but it seems to be true because there was some kind of sudden after years of conflict and spending money and on that bogus war that seems to be like set up to do certain things, such as waste money and distract people and pull wools before people's eyes and so on, to distract people from the brotherhood or brotherhood of the Gulf countries and the regime in Iran and in Syria and Pustalini for that matter. But why am I saying this is worth noting and this is important is because they suddenly withdrew for a reason. And the reason, I have no doubt for it to be that they want to send all these conscripts to fight in Ukraine on behalf of Russia. I don't see anything else really. Why would they suddenly just make this, first, there is that industry, right? Military industry that was for years and years, getting paid in billions and so on. And based on this bogus war that's torn Yemen up into pieces, right? and you know who's the culprit behind all this? You guessed it, Israel, right? But now be careful. I think all these soldiers, they're collecting soldiers. And I said this from the get-go, from the beginning, that Shiites are mad while Israel is mad because Russia basically collapsed in Ukraine. They made a dash for it and they fell off a ledge, and the precipice is very deep. They're still falling and tumbling down, and they're in broken bones and all that kind of stuff. They're basically, Russia just basically became nothing out of a big hype about who they are and stereotyping and so on. Turned out to be nothing, right? And now they're tumbling down. And they're like an eddy, right? An eddy tumbling down and breaking apart and so on. So back to our video. It's a remake, and again, Europeans, be careful. Those people that are Shiites and Iranians and whoever they are, regime in Syria, the ones that you 100 supported 100% against the population, and their allies, ISIS and Qaeda and Muslim Brotherhood and whoever it is, right, that you supported through your institutions, through UN and so on, by order of Israel, of course, right? Money, you name it, you took in those refugees as to relieve the pressure on the Syrian regime, and now they're coming to fight you and invade Europe on side of Russia, right? So if you ever heard me talk about my novel, which is not complete yet, called Animal Farm Resurrection, you helped nurse more than one bloodsucker weasel. That's first name and last name, right? Maybe I want to switch them. I would say weasel, bloodsucker, right? Last name for bloodsucker, or bloodsucker for last name. Now they're coming at you, right? That doesn't get any clearer than that, right? Hezbollah of Lebanon, the terrorist organization that was responsible for a lot of terrorist acts in the West as well. I mean, some of its members, like in Bulgaria and Hungary or somewhere, who really just killed people on the train station or bus station and something like this, like years back. They're still either in jail or they're still in courts and so on, and under arrest. You help them, and they come to now. They were sending soldiers for a while now to fight among Russians' ranks and so on. All those Chechens people and so on and so forth who are coming to help Russia, they're Shiites and Alawites, basic and simple, right? Owned by that animal farm of Israel, right? So be careful. They're gonna come in the thousands. Oh, more than that. Iran will provide more than thousands, actually. So get ready and clean up the barrels of your sniper rifles and so on. And oh, believe me, I feel bad for them as well. They're indoctrinated, brainwashed, and dark vision of life, and people. These creatures that they're sending to fight you, they're raised like dogs and pigs in a kennel and in a pigsty or something like that. Believe me, I'm not making this up. You talk to one of them, and you immediately realize how empty and hollow their brains are and their souls. They're void of souls. They raised them like this from whenever they were little, and they have this dogma that teaches them some kind of the hatred of other or something like that. That's who they are. They're coming your way. Oh, you think you're Protestant? You're their brothers in belief, 666 and whatnot. No. You don't understand those folks. You don't know how they function. Once the godship of a certain human being is achieved on another, and that supposed God has no mercy in his heart, he will direct the other human that has become his serf and his subject and so on to do all kind of harm, right? That's what's happening. These are coming your way. Okay, so that's the overture or introduction to this video, which is I'm doing a remake of. So there is, as you noticed, Johnson came to Kyiv, and what's his name? Scholz wanted to visit Kyiv as well. They're taking a stroll, right? They want to take a stroll in Kyiv as if they're gloating about something, or as if they're trying to take credit for something, and so on and so forth. But it amounts, what they're doing now amounts to nothing but adds up to nothing but shilly-shallying, to a fully managed operation that is now, if you notice, helping Pustalenin to stand up and fight again, or trying to prevent his collapse, because now they commenced an operation in Russia of purging the ranks of the FSB or KGB, right, and so on and so forth. So as you can see, there's an integrated operation to really float that regime, which is sinking, which is like falling down a hill, like in an eddy, like tumbling down a deep precipitous. And they now just deployed nets to receive it, and save it again and get it up, and not just that, with all kind of things. But notice how they're trying to give lip service to Ukraine. They're trying to deceive the public that they're there to support them and so on and so forth, but they're doing everything to deceive the Ukrainians and the world, except one thing: they're not sending weapons. Or if they're sending weapons, it's just symbolic, right? That's the fact, folks. United States, NATO, EU uh, are actually trying to save Pustalenin's regime, stand it up uh, on its feet again, right, on its legs again, and then reconstitute the attack on Ukraine. And that's what they've been doing. And that's by help from the United States, that's by help from the European Union, that's by help from NATO, European Union by way of central bank, right, and politics and deception and so on, and China and possibly Japan as well, and and so on and so forth, folks. This is what it is. They are desperate and they are in a survival mode. All of those to make sure that the post-Stalinian regime is saved from its failure. From I mean, basically, if you consider post-Stalinian a knight, like fighting knight with a K, and then Ukraine as such, and they met in a duel or joust or whatever it is. Pustalenin has already received its mortal wound and it's on the ground, basic and simple. But then, everybody rushes. Turns out that everybody now in the polity that is part of Israel, right, is trying to save it from its mortal wound, nurse its wounds and bring it back up. And they're doing that now, right? And they're reformulating an offensive. I don't think they will be able to carry out what they wanted to carry out. Basically, the wound is so mortal that they received in the first, month and a half, is for them to recover fully to their strengths and psychology and so on and so forth and come back and attack again. It's going to take much more than saving them and giving them money and saving their ruble or ruble. So that's what it is, folks. So the first one was botched. The first attack was botched, and now, in the reformulation of their offensive by order of Israel, of course, there is a rush in the underground movement of that Mossad, to save the regime of Russia and bring it back. So now, the quick part which they thought was going to happen in days didn't happen. So now, their reformulation and advance will be bloody, right? They are thinking about that. But we don't know, really. I mean, in my opinion, I don't think they're even capable of doing anything. But of course, they're bringing Houthis, they're bringing Iranians, they're bringing Hezbollah, they're bringing Alawites and Shiites, and you name it, from everywhere, right? You're gonna see them coming from Syria, from Iran, from Lebanon, and you already seen them coming, right? From Lebanon, from Yemen, you're gonna see them coming from Afghanistan, even from China, right? You're gonna see them come, and now you're gonna see all these conscripts and all these mercenaries coming to fight against Ukraine on behalf of Russians, right? And Syria as well, the Alawites of Syria, and Alawites are all over the place. They're not just in Syria; they are in Turkey. Some of the Kurds are, and they're in Palestine. They're in Lebanon as well. They're in Jordan. They're in Iraq. Minorities, but they're mainly concentrated in Syria and Lebanon, right? And that's what they're doing now. They're sending all kind of conscripts and mercenaries and basically demented creatures to fight and get killed, and they don't know why they're doing that. But that's not our business. Our business, you Europeans, is now that they're coming to fight, and you have no choice but to defend yourselves. So European citizens, know this, that your establishments, wherever it is, in Germany, in France, well, let's name these two, are making sure that they hamper your preparations, and they're making sure that Ukraine doesn't get help, and making sure that Pustalenin stands up again and come back to attack Ukraine again, massively this time. Well, there's no massive anymore, right? The fact of the matter is, again, that's the attack by Russia on Western Europe was comprehensive and apocalyptic. That Western Europe was going to be like shaved down once and for all. Now the operation has shifted gear and changed direction. Now the operation has been split. There is an operation now to rescue the Russian regime, and the other operation is to reformulate the attack, and the third operation is to come back and attack again. I don't know about that. That's a steep, tall order, like they say. A steep curve to climb. Steep. That's a steep curve to climb. Like you're gonna have to have more than just a plan here. So that's that. So again, you'd see them come and talk and blah blah, but they're making sure that there no serious weapons are getting to Ukraine. And all those who are speaking out in public, former politicians and so on, oh, they want their countries to send you weapons and they want their countries to help Ukraine and but guess what? They're ineffective, and that's intentional because now they are deceiving you by saying, oh, look, send them all weapons, but hey, he's not a prime minister or he's not so it's not going to happen, right? So this is a tactic, folks. This is a method of deception. They usually do that. It distracts the mind of the individual, whether in Ukraine or anywhere else. Uh, okay, so now the European Union and NATO and United States and Canada, whoever it is, they're buying time for Pustalenin. Buying time means until that operation of reinstituting the Russian regime and its military and so on to come back and attack have taken place. Like they're nourishing the beast, right? If you will, they're bringing up the beast again. The beast, right? The beast, biblical beast. That's part of that. I'm going to go back to a point saying that the strategy will not change toward Europe. So you will always have to be Europeans, you always have to be hyper vigilant, if you will. Hyper vigilant, and you have to defend yourself. Uh, you have to defend yourself. You have to be ready all the time. So long that communism exists in Moscow. And by communism, I don't mean the communism that is on paper, that regimen, that beast that's made of so many creatures and so on, like that crawling on the horizon coming in. Their strategy about taking over Europe and sweeping it out like completely from whatever it was and then leaving a skeleton, or if they leave anything, that strategy will not change, folks. The Pustalinins and their brothers, the Netanyahus, will not change that strategy. We know that from history, folks. We know that from history. It's like zombies living forever. If they falter once, they just don't die. Like they keep advancing and advancing. The concept of zombies is an ugly concept. By the way, they talk about other people and so on and portrays them as zombies. That's like weird, man. But I'm not here discussing their dogma. I'm here discussing their strategy, and I'm here to discuss their tactics and so on and what's going on, to alert the European citizen and everybody else who watches this video that what's coming from that east is not good, folks. Whether you're an American, whether you're Canadian, whether you're Spanish, whether you're Mexican, whether you're French, whether you're Germanic or Scandinavian or South American or even Arab, right? Or anywhere else. Well, the Arabs, we saw it, right? We Muslims saw it in Syria and Chechnya twice, and Afghanistan, and in Africa, and in Somalia, and in Yemen, and here and there. Millions upon millions were murdered, and those who survived basically had to flee for their lives, right? So whoever you are, Americans, that's what's coming from the East. That's not good. You probably were convinced by your priest or your evangelist or whoever it is, that, that's the new thing and so on. Oh, the new thing is hell, folks. And don't say you haven't been warned. You've been warned. So that's that. So when communism was established, it was moving slowly but surely, right? Hulk, this Hulk beast, moving westward, and they had like the majority of Eastern Europe and some of like Finland and Western Germany and so on. But why did they stop there? I repeat that again. It's because the West was still largely free. The freedom of the West is not completely destroyed in one day like it happened in Russia, right? The destruction of democracy and freedom in Russia happened overnight, right? Well, it took a little while to build the revolution, that underground sinister revolution and the beast was climbing from underground, right? And then eventually, when Lenin took over, it took a little bit of time, but once from its inception to its manifestation is a very short time, and then once it manifested itself, that was that, folks. There's nothing left to do except advance westward. Now, in the West, that didn't happen. In the West, freedom and liberty and democracy is eroding, but slowly. Like the inability of those beasts from the East to change the country, like overnight and make it something similar to Russia or Soviet Union, for that matter. Cannot happen overnight. It's going to cause a lot of problems and so on, and it will not succeed actually to carry it out. However, the erosion and the destruction of United States as a country, as a democracy, and Western Europe has reached a point when on January 6th it was ready to become a Soviet Union. But hey, guess that's faltered. Like that basically just went down the drain. And that, of course, changed strategy, and it's changed tactics, but not strategy. Of course, these people will not change their mind about taking over the United States and making it a Soviet Union, basic and simple, or applying what the approach of Russia to it, here in the United States, basic and simple, folks. So that stopped the Soviet Union from moving into Western Europe completely, like Germany, like Holland, like Spain, like, all these countries, right? Into all of Europe, of course, is what I'm trying to say here. And then came that destruction of the Soviets in Afghanistan. And guess what? The whole world, you guys thank those Muslims for that, right? The whole world breathed a sigh of relief, but they didn't know, that Bloodsucker Weasel was revived by Moses the Crow, and not just Moses the Crow. Bloodsucker Weasel was was revived again, and there was more than a bloodsucker weasel or weasel bloodsucker. There are Hezbollah, there's Syrian regime, there's Iraqi regime, there's like Houthis, there are Gulf countries. Oh man, there are all kind of weasels in there. And some of them have already made it to the West. I can remind you of one called Trump and Obama, and I don't want to use so many names here, but you get the point, right? So bloodsucker weasels now are reinstating the status quo, reinstating what's lost in Afghanistan. And now, of course, they want to sweep over Europe. Now there's a chance, because now the United States democracy have eroded so much that the establishment in the United States is basically a brother of Pustalenin, like serfs of Israel, right? Tells them what to do, they do, and so on. It's not like they're slaves of Israel. No, they're part of it, and that's an extended government, has extensions here and there and there. And the relationship of Pustalenin and Biden and Obama and Bush and whoever it is in the West, or Scholz and Merkel and to Israel is like, I liken it to client-server concept in computing. Right? You get it, right? There's not even a browser. The connection is so secure, it's so airtight, it's so ironclad. So it's mind-boggling, folks. But it's there. You can see it now. Something like what happened in Ukraine. The events in Ukraine exposed some of that. How? Well, you see how the West is helping Russia. So let's talk about Rubble. Do you remember Fred and Wilma in the Flintstone? Fred Rubble, and that's their last name, by the way. So Rubble is getting support, folks. If there was no financial support from the United States on account of Americans, or from Canada, or from Germany, or European Central Bank, or the Federal Reserve Bank here in America, printing digital money and just sending it to Russia, and I don't know about China. I think the establishment in Israel will spare China the financial burden, because they are one of their main legs of that tripod, Iran, Israel, Iran, Russia, and China, right? And they're supporting it, folks. Now they're giving you all kind of innuendos about about they're giving you all kind of innuendos about uh, tricks and money alchemy and savvy economists and so on. No, no, folks, no savvy economist, no, the savviest of economists in the world, or smartest, or dumbest, or whoever they are, can recover the ruble from 160 down to 80. They just can't do that, folks. Nobody can do that. It takes tangible financial support and flow in order for the ruble to really recover. Who's supporting that? Guess what? It's the United States. United States used to, and that's happening on daily basis ever since, like I don't know, Bush, and but it started to take like some morbid amounts, daily morbid amounts on the watch of Obama and Trump, and continues, of course, on Biden's. They go every day and appropriate trillions on account of America, on account of Americans, and then forward that to the stock market. They forward that to Bitcoin of Israel. Otherwise, it would have crashed a long time ago. And the stock market would have crashed a long time ago. And they will have to continue to do that because they're going to crash, if they don't, like, on daily basis generate cheap and non-existent money to support those illegitimate institutions, if you will. And of course, the debt is increasing, and debt is increasing. Sometimes they call it debt limit, you name it, all kind of things, right? But now they have to do that in the United States here. They have to do that to support Russia, right? The Russian regime. And have not the Arab Gulf countries supported in full the Russian mission or expedition of invading Syria and murdering people and so on, and shoring up the regime of Bashar, the donkey, right? Russia would have crashed just like the Soviet Union has crashed in Afghanistan. And now in Ukraine, if the United States and the Central Bank of Europe and NATO and EU and whoever it is, right, the Arab Gulf countries, did not support Putin in all aspects of support, they've given them all aspects of support, the ruble or ruble, right, will have so collapsed, it will be like quite few thousands per dollar. In fact, had they not supported the ruble, it'll probably be something like 20,000 rubles per dollar. If, and I'm telling you, if it continued to exist, otherwise, by now, my estimate, and that's a correct estimate, if the umbrella of Israel didn't support the Russian regime will have collapsed by now. The support operation is so airtight, it's not just financial, it's not just intelligence, it's not just forwarding now, bringing mercenaries and conscripts of Shiites and Alawites from the east, from Iran, from Lebanon, and from Syria, and from here and there, and possibly from Tunisia and Algeria, and here and there, all these Ibadis and Alawites. It's also making sure that Ukraine doesn't get help. They are making sure of that. And how do they cover that? Well, very cheap. That doesn't cost. They come to Kiev and take a stroll, or victory lap, or whatever it is. Or maybe they're gloating, right? I don't know. Well, you get the message, right? So the ruble is definitely supported. Don't question yourself about that. Whether it's computer-generated money or whatever it is, the ruble is supported, folks, by the West. Americans, you are footing the bill. European and Americans and Arabs and everybody else, you are footing the bill for supporting that regime in Moscow, per order of Israel, of course. Now, here's a point for you. Outside of this war, the United States has always supported Russia. Oil and gas alone will not be enough to support Russia as a country. Whatever sales they make, as a country, they need more than that. They're over 100 million or maybe 200 million. Supposedly, they need the budget of this much need much more than that, folks. Than whatever oil revenue and gas revenue they're getting. Maybe enough, I don't know, because many of them, the vast majority of Russians, they live in poverty, right? And they don't even have gas when the country supposedly have the large natural gas deposits, right? Or even laptops or even handy. That's why they are looting in Ukraine and they're stealing cell phones and uh, they're stealing all kind of things. So there is absolutely continuous support uh, by uh, United States and even in communism, right? During communism, during World War II and World War One, United States during World War II, let's take that. United States supported Russia or the Stalin regime by hardware and so on through Iran, right? I got this from Germans. I'm not making this up myself. And they supported them financially and so on and so forth, and they continued to support them. I do recall uh, the United States during the communist rule until it crashed, even during the communist rule after World War II, they always sent help to the Soviet Union of grain, grain shipment, because the Soviet Union apparently couldn't produce enough grain to feed its people. So the United States volunteered all that, right? So the help from the West toward that communism has very obvious clues and very obvious evidence from its inception until now. But of course, it increases now. Why? Because now there is the threat of the communist regime failure in Moscow, right? So the support now, like everybody jumps up and runs and begins to support that regime in Moscow. Support has always been there, but now, of course, it increases, right? So as you can see, that is a comprehensive operation to bring that to save that regime and bring it up and have it attacked again, and and of course, there is absolutely no hesitation about that in the West. There is no shilly-shallying, there is no vacillation, there is no going back and forth or U-turns or anything else. Oh no, there is a resolute support for the Russian regime by the West, by NATO, by EU, by United States, ordered of course by Israel. There's no doubt what that regime is from Lenin until now. Who rules it? Who runs it? What it is intended to do, and what's going on? There is no doubt. So that's that, folks. Now, during the pandemic, and that's what apparently got me in trouble last time. During the pandemic, people started, endured all kind of sufferings, whether it's in the United States, which I witnessed myself, or anywhere else. Aside from the masks, like a lot of people lost their jobs, in the hospitality industry and so on. Hotels closed, restaurants closed. Some of the industry never recovered, really. Even now, after all the mandates, 2 years later, after all the mandates were removed and quarantines and restrictions and so on, I can clearly see some businesses never recovered, really never opened. One of them is right here, like 500 feet from me, an old, very old restaurant. It closed down and never really opened. It's closed now, really. And many people, it kind of caused a jolt and a shock to the world normal flow of business and normal flow of living and so on. A lot of people suffered, they're just no longer able to make living ends meet and so on and so forth. While at the same time, trillions were stolen to support the stock market, to support the investors, to support Russia, to support Iran, to support ISIS, to support Qaeda and so on. Money flows there, folks, to support Bitcoin of Israel. Oh, money flows, folks. It's digital, it's cheap, but oh, you better believe it, United States is supporting all those facts back there, like in the regime in Syria and so on and so forth. Oh, they're supporting them, folks, day and night. The thing for Israel is not something that is interim. Like interim means like for a short span of time, or say utility utilized for a short span of time and then it's shelved. No. This is a comprehensive operation, folks, to take over the world. If you not take over the world, that they have something of the sort going on, whether it's in China or Iran or Russia or the West for that matter. But to really filter down through to the ranks of the individual and family and begin destruction, folks. One of the main very famous anchors on those investment channels called it the biggest transfer of wealth in history. And I quote an interview early in the pandemic, I quote an interview by the governor of Washington, not DC, but Washington, the state, Seattle, like northwest of America. And he mentioned that Trump, when the pandemic hit, right? Pandemic hit, with all its wars, with all its destruction, like people's life was like in upheaval and so on. That virus came from China and so on. And he said that he accused Trump of, instead of taking care of the people, he accused Trump, and I quote, and he's a white Republican, right? He accused Trump of supporting the stock market instead. And sure enough, when the pandemic hit, like a month later, when it was declared that it's a pandemic and so on, Trump called two big, supposedly super billionaire investors and said, one is, I think, Tudor, and one is Schwarzman or something like that. And he asked him what to do, and he immediately forwarded like so many trillions into the market. And one of them, Tudor, I think he was like out in raptures. He says he likes massive. He took this shrimp Trump, put probably 10 trillion on America's account and gave it to them, right? And America, your average American was like being in, like sitting at home, not knowing what to do, how to feed their children, and so on and so forth, while their country is being charged probably 10 trillion a day to support Bitcoin, to support investors. That's what Trump is. That's what Obama is. You may think they belong to the same posse that is stripping America of all its value and putting debt on it forever, right? And their intention, of course, is to erase this debt by way of converting the currency and so on into Bitcoin, and then Bitcoin, of course, is like stock market, right? It goes up and down, and it's fine controlled per unit, and so on. Oh, folks, you have no idea what's taking place now, and believe it or not, the invasion of Europe by Russia is very relevant to that. They are very interconnected, folks. You may think, oh, no, they are interconnected, folks. What's happened during the last 2 years, during the pandemic, and the advance of Russia and Bitcoin? Oh, folks, you have no clue. No matter how far you go in your thinking, in considering all that, you will come to discover they're all interconnected, folks. What happened in the Middle East, what's happening in Europe now, what's happening in Americas. And now they're scrambling to save that regime in Russia, because the failure on January 6th of last year and the failure of Russia now in Ukraine, it's a big deal. The whole horse of Zion basically tumbled down, or bull of Zion, bulls and bears, right, of the stock market, basically tumbled down, and they're falling down the precipice like an idiot. So that's that. Apparently this video is going to be longer than that one. So there is a constant, is that there is, when it comes to providing Ukraine, I'm going to repeat, there is procrastination, there is like delay, there is lying, there's deceit, and so on and so forth. It's very obvious, right? You take those very small elements that are very obvious and put them together, and guess what? You get a picture, a whole picture. Like put the pieces together and you get a picture. It is a comprehensive operation, folks, to probe up the Russian regime again, and have it come back again. That's questionable, of course, folks. All right. I'm going to stop here, and I'm going to come back and continue this video. So I'll post it again a little bit later.